the idea was to create living spaces which are beautiful, sustainable, and inclusive, to bring people together in the spirit of creation and community.
Our homes, our neighborhoods, our schools, the places we live in every day. Can they be transformed for better life quality? The new European Bauhaus initiative looks to bring together sustainability, inclusion, and beauty to reimagine how our living environments are designed and how they can evolve. In today's episode, we break down what the NEB really is and why it matters for citizens, not someday, but now. Welcome to a new episode of Where It All Happens, a Territories in Action podcast. My name is Maria Marque, and today we talk about the new European Bauhaus and how to make the places where we spend most of our time better to live in. The NEB is one of the challenges within the EU Preparatory Action on Innovation for Place-Based Transformation, in which some territories are using innovation to improve their living spaces. Today we will talk to people designing, building, and testing new ways of doing things. And we'll tackle one of Europe's biggest concerns, affordable housing, exploring how the NEB can help deliver homes that are not only affordable and sustainable, but also dignified and well-designed. This isn't just about architecture or policy, but how Europe lives. We turn today to my colleague, Veronica Romero, already a guest in previous episodes, who's going to help us illustrate and describe the NEB. Vero, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, great to be here.
When we hear New European Bauhaus, we can think it sounds inspiring or we can be confused since it can seem a little bit abstract.
Yeah, you're right. The New European Bauhaus can sound a bit mysterious, but at its core it's actually very down to earth.
So let's start there. In simple terms, what is the New European Bauhaus?
At its heart, the New European Bauhaus is about improving the places where people live, work, and meet. It brings together sustainability, inclusion, and quality design, not a separate goal, but as something that should go hand in hand. It's about making the green transition visible and tangible in everyday life.
So it's just not about architecture or aesthetics.
Exactly. It's about how places function, who they work for, and how they make people feel. And that's why the NEB connects so many different actors. It goes from designers, architects, local authorities, citizens, scientists, and even communities.
So let's go to specifics and hear from some of those voices. Let's start with architecture and living spaces.
Yes, architecture plays a key role in how we experience our surroundings, and one of the most well-known voices in this field is Bjarke Ingels. His work shows how buildings can be sustainable, innovative, and still deeply human.
To me, the New European Bauhaus is about using the necessity of the energy transition and the decarbonization of the world economy to counteract climate change as an opportunity to discover and implement not only new technical solutions, new and innovative low-carbon construction materials, to rediscover old, established traditional materials that are locally sourced and therefore contain less embodied energy, but also to use it as an opportunity to reimagine and re-explore a new architectural aesthetic so that the buildings of the future will not only be better for the environment, but also more beautiful to live in and more enjoyable to work in. So you can say the same way that the Bauhaus movement tried to harness the power of industrialization to provide high quality housing and urban environments for the masses, the joint research center that we have designed and are building now for the European Commission in Sevilla is thought of as a built example of how the New European Bauhaus can rediscover local traditional ways of building and realize them with new construction methods and contemporary building materials to reimagine an architectural vocabulary that is adapted to the local climate and cultural context, and that responds to ways to lower the embodied carbon of a building and the operational carbon.
What I find interesting there is that it's not about designing for people, but designing with life in mind.
Absolutely. And the NEP pushes this idea even further, beyond humans alone. It asks us to rethink cities and shared ecosystems. Polino is a great example on how to connect design, ecology, and urban planning. It's an initiative that reimagines urban spaces to better support pollinators, like bees and other insects, while also improving biodiversity, resilience, and the quality of public space for people. It's about designing cities that work better for nature and citizens, and showing that these goals don't compete, but reinforce each other.
For me, the new European Bauhaus is really about connections and building bridges. It connects ecology, design, and everyday life in a very tangible way. I often feel that sustainability stays at the level of policy, theory, or merely technical solutions. My project, Polino, is a design intervention that creates real habitat for wild pollinators in urban spaces. It integrates nesting spaces for solitary bees into wayfinding signage, an everyday urban infrastructure that is widely needed in cities. In this way, Polino translates ecological research into something visible, understandable, and tangible. The new European Bauhaus gives Polino context and legitimacy. It places the project within a broader European conversation about how we can shape our environments and how design can respond to ecological challenges in a meaningful way.
That really changes the way we think about what a successful city looks like.
It does. And the NEP also invites us to move away from the idea of perfection, especially when it comes to buildings and people. Aarhus, the imperfect city, is a powerful example of how embracing imperfection can lead to more inclusive and livable cities. It recognizes that cities are complex and evolving places, and that diversity, adaptability, and even flaws can be strengths.
Often when we talk about green cities, we focus on numbers like CO2 numbers and energy labels. But the new European Bauhaus reminds us that a sustainable city must also be beautiful and must be inclusive. It means designing spaces that don't just function well, but actually make people feel better mentally and socially. It's about creating a soul for the city where everyone feels that they belong. Our project, Imperfect City, contributes by putting people at the center of urban development. Instead of aiming for a perfect, polished architectural plan, we embrace the imperfect and the human side of our city, Aarhus. We focus on linking mental health with urban spaces, for example, by creating areas that reduce stress and encourage social interaction. By doing this, we turn the new European Bauhaus core values into a physical reality, proving that a sustainable city is one that supports the mental health of its citizens.
And then, of course, the NEP doesn't exist without collaboration.
Without a doubt, a future-ready, socially just, and environmentally friendly district to live and work in. That's the objective of the initiative Neighbourhoods, which focuses on public spaces, energy communities, and local mobility, looking for a model for European cities.
Creating neighborhoods together implements the NEP values and principles by working with and for Munich-Neuperlach. In its core areas, this suburban district was planned and built in the 60s and 70s. And now we need to tackle its development challenges. So we combined NEP-guided co-creative living labs for more than 10 different urban topics with entrepreneurial thinking. Our handbook, Neighborhoods for Tomorrow, provides kickstarters for replication and shares our experiences.
Listening to these examples, it becomes clear that the new European Bauhaus isn't just a single model or a blueprint.
No, it's more of a shared mindset. It's a way of approaching transformation that is place-based, people-centered, and open to experimentation. And with the new preparatory action, territories now have more space to test, adapt, and scale these ideas into real context.
Before we wrap up this conversation, there's one more place where all of this really comes together, and where people can experience the NEB firsthand, the new European Bauhaus Festival. But what is the festival exactly?
It's a space that gathers citizens, artists, architects, policymakers, local initiatives, and community. It includes debates, workshops, but also exhibition, performances, and hands-on experience. It is designed to show what the new European Bauhaus looks like and feels like, not just to talk about it. And to be part, you don't need to be an expert, because the festival is open for anyone that is curious on how our living spaces can become more sustainable, more inclusive, and more beautiful. It is a place to meet the people behind the projects we've been talking about and to get inspired by what's already happening across Europe.
Sounds really cool. When does it take place?
In 2026, the New European Bauhaus Festival takes place from the 9th to the 13th of June in Brussels. So mark your calendars, because it's a great opportunity to really understand the NEB by experiencing it through ideas, conversations, and real examples.
Thank you so much for the info, Vero. So if you want to see how the new European Bauhaus is shaping Europe's living places and maybe imagine how it could shape yours, that's the place to be.
Absolutely. It's the NEB in action.
Without a doubt, one of Europe's biggest challenges is affordable housing. Housing Europe is a federation which represents public, cooperative, and social housing organizations across the continent. They've been working right at the intersection of housing policy, sustainability, and social inclusion. Basically, all the elements that define the NEB. Sorcha Edwards, Secretary General of Housing Europe, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
The NEB is already inspiring projects in different regions. From your perspective, how do these local experiences connect with what Housing Europe is trying to achieve?
Is actually very much aligned with the spirit of Housing Europe and how we try to work at European level. So very often European level, as all of us who work in the Brussels bubble know, we talk about directives, we talk about regulations. And in our sector, that could be anything. So that can be a directive about energy efficiency, that can be rules about public expenditure. So it's quite a technical discussion. But then when we talk to our members, of course, they have to create nice places where people live. And of course, at the same time, try to integrate all of those initiatives and technical legislation. So actually, the new European Bauhaus is really aligned with that, because it tries to indeed turn the conversation around. Say, okay, what do we want to achieve at local level? Livable neighborhoods where people can flourish. And this is indeed our mission statement. It has been for some time. Creating those places where people can reach their full potential. And this way, we really welcome the spirit of the new European Bauhaus. So we try to bring that into our work at European level on all those individual regulations and directives and funding streams. So indeed, it's very much aligned.
You work with different members based in cities or based in rural areas. How are they responding to the NEB principles, and what challenges do they face when trying to make homes both sustainable and affordable?
So I can't say we work with 43,000 of those local organizations. So I can't say all of them all over Europe are aware of the new European Bauhaus principles. However, for very often when we work on legislation, we have to push our members to get involved. But I must say, when the new European Bauhaus initiative was announced, one of the first times we actually had calls from many of them, because indeed it resonated with what they tried to achieve, this holistic approach to make livable neighborhoods. But of course, they have a struggle at the moment. I think it's part of the bigger trend we see globally. I just read a study. So 12 of the richest billionaires now have more wealth than the half of the poorest people on the planet. And we see this reflected also with the housing crisis, and of course many of those organizations in at local level having difficulty getting having the possibility to both deliver new homes, which are really urgently needed, but at the same time improve the neighborhoods and the homes that are there, in the face of indeed growing poverty levels, growing waiting lists for housing, and unfortunately growing inequalities where housing is actually one of the driving factors of those inequalities, whether that's between generations, whether that's extreme inequality that we see homelessness, but also inequalities we see particularly in areas that are popular for digital nomads, for instance. So we have inequalities with local people not being able to afford homes anymore where they grew up because of inequalities in income. And housing is often one of at the moment, one of the driving factors of those inequalities. And what we love about the Bauhaus spirit, I think you try to turn that around.
Actually, one of things many territories mention is the difficulty of financing energy renovations while keeping the rents reasonable. How can the EU instruments or the NEB-inspired funding help strike that balance?
Yes, of course. What we need to align the housing crisis with the climate crisis. We can't separate the two challenges. If you like, existential challenges. So obviously, the need to reduce CO2 emissions is an existential challenge facing all of us, all of humanity. And the housing crisis is a challenge that is potentially undermining democracy because of the inequalities that are being created, so being generated. So indeed, what we try to do is to bring together those two challenges. So providing housing that is both affordable but also serves to bring down CO2 emissions. This can be in an obvious way. Think about mobility, having housing that is accessible with shared transport, with public transport, or with bicycling, for instance, making sure that we build in a CO2 efficient way. And we see in European Bauhaus, you have identified in the projects that you have put forward in housing, indeed, you have helped to bring to light those housing projects that do exactly that. So I think of a rising movement in Catalonia. You have identified the new movement of right of use cooperatives. You've identified those as a something that encapsulates the spirit of the new European Bauhaus. And why? Because it actually does turn the housing question around. It provides housing which is accessible in terms of transport, but low carbon emitting transport. And I think this is the richness of also what the new European Bauhaus program can do is can highlight those tried and tested models that have managed to be sustainable in terms of financing and climate in the long term and socially, of course. So we really welcome that push the new European Bauhaus to have a more positive dynamic.
Let's talk a bit about regulation because it often plays a major role, but sometimes it's enabling and other times complicating. What kind of policy shifts do you think are the most important to help affordable housing providers fully embrace the NEB values?
So they actually want to do a stock take as part of their boosting supply. Um, pillar within the plan. They want to do a stock take of legislation which impacts construction to see where there can be some streamlining without obviously compromising the need to reduce emissions. So I think this is going to be very crucial. We're going to see that at the end of the year. We will be feeding in good examples of where that's already being achieved and then proposals as to what legislation would need to be, let's say, streamlined from European level, but also national level. See what legislation needs to be streamlined so that we can speed up the delivery of the types of homes we need, also through the conversion of existing buildings. So much of this regulation cannot come from EU level. However, we can have a serious exchange on between member states to identify good practice. Then, in terms of uh, so the regulation around maximizing, for instance, local production of energy and democratization of our energy system, also to tackle energy poverty, we see while we have good solutions at European level with the energy communities legislation, we see still many holdups at local level to do with grid access, to do with how energy is taxed, which are slowing down the development of energy communities and the potential to produce energy, and which would directly reduce people's bills living in the homes. So I think it's an ongoing push we need to reach that potential there. I think in view of the need for energy independence, I think we need some urgency around this, but also urgency around the streamlining of legislation. So to identify that legislation which is actually slowing. And on this, indeed, it differs from member state to member state. Very often, the together part also needs financing. So the work on outreach, the work community outreach, accompanying of people who may have disabilities, who may have other challenges, uh, also requires skills and funding, and very often that can be missing. So there's only maybe finance available for the hard renovation, for instance, but not for all that work which is required to make sure it's a project that's accepted and that integrates also people's worries and concerns. So I think this is I think this is beautiful, sustainable together. So if we really want to address homelessness, address housing exclusion, we need to have enable cities, local authorities to regulate short-term lets, for instance. This is a big issue. So obviously, if you're waking at 2 in the morning because there's a party, people you don't know next door to you, or if your school is emptying because your whole area is used as a tourist accommodation without replacing those homes and replacing those communities, then you also have this problem of being attached to your neighborhood. So you're basically being excluded by your neighborhood. So we need good regulation, which doesn't undermine the importance of tourism to the economy, but regulation of how homes are used in neighborhoods. They can be beautiful, they can be sustainable. However, if the people living there change every 2 days and nobody can afford to rent there anymore, we see that there's regulation needed as well. So I think we have to recognize that if we want housing to be a societal question and to be solved as a society, we cannot leave this aspect of commodification unregulated, but it has to be managed in a very clever way together with communities.
Yeah, sure. Looking into the future, what would it mean for you if in 10 years we could say the NEB truly reshaped Europe's approach to housing? How do you hope people will feel about their homes and communities by then?
So I think what would be a real win if we could really, with the new European Bauhaus, and obviously its mission also on the environment, if we could really help to optimize the use of existing buildings. So we definitely have an under occupancy. So if we could raise the awareness of excellent examples of where, for instance, I'm thinking of intergenerational housing in Valencia and Alicante that I've seen. I've seen excellent examples in Ireland as well of where people, so particularly elderly people, are really asked, okay, how would they like to live now that they perhaps need less space? And we see these excellent examples of where those households have been able to right size, so move to a smaller home near services, freeing up other homes. And I think what the European Bauhaus, I think what could be amazing is that we really make it easier across Europe to try to find out about those really inspiring examples maybe be able to visit those online, do a digital tour of those examples, see interviews with people and how they managed to get them off the ground. What's the experience of living there? So I think if you can make that accessible, so if a village has a huge problem, let's say a coastal village with air, with maybe 80% of the homes are holiday homes and the schools have emptied, there's no shops left, that they can link up with other villages who have managed to overcome that through the European Bauhaus.
Thank you so much, Sorcha. It's really inspiring to see how the work you're doing from Housing Europe. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Maria. It's been really excellent to catch up, and I'm looking forward to the festival.
Thank you. We've talked about what the new European Bauhaus is, the mindset behind it, some inspiring examples, the problem of affordable housing. But the real question is, what happens when a territory decides to take this seriously and turn it into action on the ground? Thanks to the exploratory journeys of the preparatory action, this is already happening. Banská Bystrica, a regional capital city in central Slovakia, faces strong demographic change and the pressures of an aging population. The city is using health as a driver for place-based transformation, connecting healthcare, urban development, innovation, and community life. By building a new health-driven innovation district around a modernized hospital or revitalizing a historic industrial site, Banská Bystrica is showing how the new European Bauhaus principles can shape more resilient cities. Milan Hagovsky works on the strategic planning of the city. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
When people hear New European Bauhaus, they don't always think about health. From your perspective, how are health and well-being connected to the way our cities and living spaces are designed?
I think that health and well-being are shaped together well before the people start using the health services. So in the cities, the life in daylight cleaner, we have walkable street, green spaces and places which invite people for movement and social connection. Good design is not just beautiful or sustainable, but really actively supports mental, physical, and social health in everyday life. So these are the links, maybe, as I see it.
Banská Bystrica is creating a new innovation district focused on the knowledge and digital economy and health sectors. What does this district look like in practice, and how will it improve everyday life of residents?
We have the big investment from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is building the new modern hospital. And hospital is known for advanced robotic surgery and many well-being related health approaches, like developing preventive, predictive, and personalized medicine, which put people to the center of the holistic services. So it's very important connection between the health sector and the innovation district, because innovation district connects physical spaces, connect public services, connect place for living, place for work, a place for enjoying in the city. So innovation district, it's a workable place where healthcare, research, startup, digital services, and public spaces sit side by side. And hospital because hub for innovation, not as an island, because it is connected to all these points, labs, workplaces, park, and everyday services. And for residents, it means better access to healthcare, new job, shortened commutes, and neighborhood that support healthy, active daily life.
You're bringing together healthcare, education, research, and urban development. What was the biggest challenge in getting these different worlds to work together?
I think the biggest challenge is that each sector speaks different language and works in different timelines, various levels, various private, public, semi-mixed, various kind of ownership. So it's sometimes very values goals. So it's very complicated to try to put all this together. Healthcare thing in the safety and standards, or academia has the receipt cycles. Cities or focus on regulations and developing the interactions, and startup needs maybe the speed. So the real work is creating, finding the way how to create together shared goals and mutual trust. And we need the dialogue. So the collaboration becomes the default, not an occasional thing or exception.
The NEB is very much about people and inclusion. How are citizens, patients, and local communities involved in shaping this transformation?
We try to involve citizens, people early, not just at the end, through participatory planning, open discussions, and co-creation with local communities. But quality participatory planning is very demanding for the qualified facilitators, financial sources, and so it's not so easy to find for all sectors of parts of the city these sources within the city budget. And we decide to help, and we start to use participatory democracy digital open source platform Decidim, which was formerly developed in Barcelona for better communication, the city government and people, and these tools we start to really use every year with more processes. We had another so we established the city parliaments, to enable people to be part of the policymaking the process, to express their expectation, feeling about the future, which influence the design of the policies of the city, to listen and to co-create with them. So residents need to define what quality life means in their daily context, from public spaces to services.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope to test or learn through the EU preparatory action on place-based transformation?
It's very exciting cooperation because we had very direct link to gain the inspirations from other cities and region, and transfer of the knowledge of the best experts, maybe which are on the Europe, which are concentrated around John Research Centre and its partners. And it's very important to better understand what does it mean, this challenge-based, evidence-based approach, because we are now on the process for preparing for new programming period. And overwhelming majority of the Europeans' lives in the cities, and the roles of the cities region is growing. And it is very important that the cities and regions are partner of the national governments, of the European institutions on transformation. And I think the main message, this place-specific, place-based approach, and all the methodologies and actions as example, it's very, very useful for us. I hope to test that place-based transformation will work in real everyday conditions across the sectors, institutions, and communities. And I want to learn what truly helps cities turn by big European ideas into practical challenge that people can feel in their daily lives.
Thank you so much for letting us know how you're looking into improving the life quality of your citizens. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
As we wrap up today's episode of Where It All Happens, a Territories in Action podcast, it's clear that transformation isn't something that only takes place in Brussels or in policy papers. It happens right where people live, work, and build their futures. The new European Bauhaus invites us to imagine a Europe where every place, from the smallest village to the largest city, can thrive through shared values of beauty, sustainability, and togetherness. And those changes we've heard about today, they're proof that this isn't just an idea. It's happening right now, where it all happens, in our territories, in action. Thanks for listening and for being part of this journey towards a more hopeful, human-centered Europe. Until next time, keep your eyes open for the places where transformation begins, often just around the corner.